All right, friends, welcome back to Follow the Money Radio. So grateful to have you here. Again, we're joined by my good friend and longtime financial advisor, Mike Mitchell. Mike, it's great to have you on the podcast today.
It's good to be here, Jerry. Good to see you again.
Great to see you too. We are going to be talking today. We've been talking off the air about this. We've been talking about the importance of wills and trusts.
Yes.
And many people, when they hear about wills and trusts, they know that it's an important thing. They know it's something that they probably need to have a discussion about, but it's also it's a sad topic. It's a topic that people don't really want to think about. Of course, it's similar to life insurance in that respect. It's just a difficult discussion to have. And there was actually a story in the news this week that actually kind of prompted us to think about this. Again, we have another Hollywood actor, this time Chadwick Boseman. I guess he was a star in the Black Panther movie, who died of colon cancer at the age of 43, just out of the blue, just so young. Turns out that his multi-million-dollar estate passes now without a will and without a testament. And so here we hear about these stories fairly regularly where there are people who have money. They had probably had a financial advisor of some kind, but they never took action to create a will. And this can leave the heirs in a really tight bind. And you've seen this over and over. I have too. It's heartbreaking when this happens. Can you talk to us? Let's begin this brief discussion just from your perspective of what a will is and why it's so important for the average person to consider.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, in some aspects, I think it's a sad topic, but also it is a topic that you can build around love, because you're basically creating a mechanism, a platform that is going to express your concern and your love for your heirs. If you pass away without a will, you die what the legal industry calls you die intestate, which simply means you died without drafting your own wishes and desires in a legal document called a will. And before I go too much further, let me give my disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice, but these are just things that I've run across over the years that I've been practicing with the people that I work with. But passing away without a will means the state that you are domiciled in are going to be issuing a will or a document that determines how your heirs are going to receive what you have left for them. So you have no input for that. And unfortunately, statistically, only 1/3 of Americans have any kind of will at all. So 2/3 of Americans are unprepared in this particular instance. So if you want to be able to have some say so in how your heirs are going to receive the property and the assets that you're leaving for them, and you want to have input for the ability to set up advanced medical directives, planning for minor children, advanced business directives, a living will, how you're going to be taken care of in the event that you're incapacitated or you're unable to communicate with people, powers of attorney, all of those kinds of things are controlled by a will. And unless you sit down with an attorney who can draft this for you, then you have no input, and your heirs are pretty much at the mercy of whatever the state decides is proper. So that's the overriding need.
That's a really important point that you've made about the will, but specifically, I really like what you said about how it's an act of love, and we've certainly talked about that too. Even the love letter that you've often talked about,
Right.
that's written for the spouse. This is exactly the right way to look at it. It's when you bring up all of the decisions that have to be made with a will, it does seem overwhelming. It does seem like, who wants to have this discussion? But when you view it through the lens of love and you realize that you're doing your family a massive favor, you're taking so much pressure off of them, the very moment, and this is what I've seen, and I know you've probably seen the same thing, Mike, but at the very moment when the family is grieving and is dealing with this devastating loss, of someone in the family. If they don't have a will, then all of that grief and all of those problems are literally compounded, because now they, in addition to trying to grieve normally and deal with the normal sense of loss, they have all of these compounded problems because the individual who passed didn't go through and answer these questions. And so these all have to be sorted out by the family who's grieving at the very worst possible time for them to make these decisions.
That's correct. Yes. Additionally, it creates another area of concern, and that is, even though you have a will, the whole issue of probate, the probate process is very difficult to manage. Anybody that's gone through losing a loved one and having to go through the probate process, it is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. So even if you have a will, even if you've done a very good job of having a will drafted and it's current and it's proper, that still is going to push your heirs into the probate process, which is time consuming. You have to be represented in the court by an attorney, so there's an expense. All of your assets are literally frozen until the probate process can be completed, and sometimes that can take 6 to 9 months. So a will is important from the standpoint of you having control with being able to issue directives for what you want, appointing people that are going to care for minor children and all the other things that we've talked about. But even beyond that, there is the overriding concern and issue of having to go through the probate process. And there's a very easy fix for that.
And let's refer to that, because this is probably the most powerful thing that many people can do when it comes to taking it one step further. So you do have the will, the last will and testament. You also have the living will. But then you also have trusts. And these are things that many Americans, if only 1/3 of Americans have wills, we would assume that a very small number actually have trusts. Many people don't feel like they have enough assets to even be considered for a trust. But from my understanding, Mike, and I want to get your take on trusts, but from the way I've always explained them to people is that it's like a will, but you can pull strings from the grave, so to speak, with a trust. You can really control the flow of the assets, instead of just the will literally just distributes immediately, usually in most cases. Whereas the trust kind of allows you to pull strings from the grave. Explain the trust to the audience and how that differs from the will, in your opinion.
Essentially what you're doing is, once you've created your will, which is your wishes, your desires, your directives, then you name a trustee that's going to survive you, and you're going to give instructions to this trustee in the form of a trust document. That's what you're referring to, is being able to give directives and give guidance, your desires and wishes and timing of those wishes, literally from the grave, because this document will outlive you. And your trustee will then simply execute your wishes from that trust document and manage those transfers and those income flows and dealing with your heirs as soon as you pass away. The important thing about that is it completely avoids probate. So with a will, you are going to find yourself in a probate process. If you put that will inside of a revocable living trust, because you want to be able to change it if necessary, then you're going to avoid going to probate, and your trustee will simply execute the wishes and the directives of the trust document. Now,
instead of leaving it to the judge to decide, basically.
Correct. That's exactly right. And I think one of the most important things about whether I should have a trust or not is probably not so much centered around how many assets I have, or, I don't have, a lot of people think they're not wealthy enough to have a trust and things of that nature. If you've got family, if you've got any assets at all, and you want to keep it private, you want a trust. Because if you go to the probate process, that becomes a document of the courts, and that's public, that's in the public domain. And it's going to be filed in the courthouse, and anybody can go down to the courthouse and see what assets, what was left in your estate and who they were left to. So if you want to keep it private, a living trust is really the way to go.
That's a very interesting point. And also, just briefly, I was thinking also about some of the things that you shouldn't put in a will. For example, we've talked many times about life insurance on these discussions, and life insurance, of course, you designate that beneficiary on the form, on the application. You can always change that with the life insurance company, but don't designate a beneficiary for the life insurance in your will, because that won't help. Likewise, there's other things like your IRA beneficiary designation. That wouldn't help. Or even being, if your wishes are to be cremated or to donate an organ, that doesn't go on the will, because again, that will may not be read for, days after you've been buried. So you really need some guidance. I mean, people need guidance on this topic. I know that you can do things like holographic wills, where you can just write your will on a piece of paper, and that seems to hold up in some courts. It seems to work, but just as you pointed out, they may forget something. They may not have thought this thing through, and so it could actually blow up and actually not be a smart plan. So they really need advice from a professional. And as you mentioned, you're not an attorney, I'm not an attorney, but we work with attorneys. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, in our planning process, of course, as I think most of the listeners at this point know, that we use a very holistic macroeconomic approach to planning. So we have the ability to really get our hands around everything that's going on in a person's life financially. And we also have connections with a nationwide network of estate planning attorneys. And so being able to connect to a local attorney to deal with the issues that are important to you and your family is really a big benefit. So one of the things that we can do for people that approach, that come to us for guidance and help and advice, is we'll have an opportunity to determine if it makes sense for them to get connected to a local estate planning attorney. And I'm saying that specifically that way because a lot of people think that they can just go to a general practitioner of law and that will suffice. But the problem there is you need somebody that kind of specializes in this area, and we have those connections through this network. And we would love to be able to connect the listeners to this program to the people that do this the best, and that's what we hope to be able to do with it.
Yeah, it's a great service. So if you're out there listening to this and you say, I'd like to talk to an estate planning attorney, I just don't know where to turn. Well, you can contact Mike, and he can put you in touch with someone in your state who can help you with that. And that makes all the difference, because each state has their own laws. Each state has their own, complexities, and having an attorney who knows that state's laws is absolutely vital.
Yes, absolutely.
So if folks want to talk to you, Mike, explain how that process works and then how you can connect them with an attorney.
Yeah, we have a toll-free number people can call, and that number is 833-370-0777. Let me say that again, 833-370-0777. And they can get directly to us, to me, and we can get them on the right path for what I consider creating a legacy of love. Being able to give those tools and that guidance to your heirs once you're gone is a tremendous way to express how much you love them.
Mm-hmm. We should talk about sometime, Mike, about that love letter that you've talked about.
Yes.
We should do another video just specifically on that topic. I know many people will be blessed by hearing about that approach. It's very different. It's radical. It's a radical way of thinking when it comes to this topic. But I would encourage folks, if you are listening to this and you say something has been said today that kind of rings a bell with me, I need to maybe sit down with someone and talk about a will, maybe even advanced healthcare directives or advanced business directives, or maybe you want to create a trust. Maybe that sounds intriguing to you. Just give Mike a call. Let him know that you heard about him on this video or just through Follow the Money, so he knows, and he will roll out the red carpet for you, and you guys will have a wonderful discussion. Mike, you've helped so many folks here in our Follow the Money community, and I want to thank you for all the diligence you put in and the hard work you put into helping our folks. And again, if folks want to reach out to you, there's the phone number right there on the screen they can call.
Yes.
But I guess any final words before we conclude, Mike?
We just look forward to talking to the people who need help with things that sometimes can be a little complicated, and we think we can uncomplicate those things and point them in the right direction and help them do the right things when it comes to their assets, their heirs, and the people that they care about.
That's right. Hey, there is wisdom in the multitude of counselors, and let us connect you with Mike Mitchell. Give Mike a call if you have any questions about anything we've talked about today. Mike, great to talk to you again this week, and we'll look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Absolutely. Good to see you again, and good talking with you, Jerry.
Take care. God bless.